Good morning, all. The sun is shining and Norwich City have made another addition to their Premier League squad, a significant addition as well. Pierre Lees-Melou from Nice, an experienced Ligue 1 player, has also played for Dijon, got them promoted and helped them survive. And there's a real good story behind his career as well. He basically went from non-league to Champions League in a little over 2 years. Dave Freezer here alongside Connor Southwell, reacting to the news, which has just been confirmed. 9:30 this morning, 3-year contract. And Connor, from all that we're hearing about this lad from France, he seems like he's very popular, dependable player, and he's got a pretty decent goal record as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think the word you use there, dependable, is spot on, really. And it probably, from a sort of zooming out a little bit, shows where Norwich City are compared to perhaps where they were 2 years ago in terms of the profile and what they've been able to attract. I mean, you dig into some of his career statistics, and yeah, the story you painted there is really nice in terms of his rise from the French non-league up to Ligue 1. But I mean, he's played over 150 times in the top flight in France. Still only 28, so a very decent age. He's played in the Champions League and the Europa League as well. So it looks like someone, and you can see there, Tony flashes up the statistics. Pretty good goal record as well for a midfielder. So this, on paper, looks like a very solid addition to Norwich City's midfield. Obviously, we know they're a little bit short in that area because of the players that have departed since the end of the Championship season. And this guy does look to represent a step up in terms of quality and in terms of profile.
Joey B1 Gaming says on Twitter, winning the Prem. So I think this is going to generate a fair bit of excitement, isn't it? It is, this is an established player. Apparently the deal is worth around £5 million. So, a significant addition, comes into midfield alongside Billy Gilmore. Depends whether you want to include Giannoulis and Gibson as permanent signings this summer. Of course, they will confirm this summer. Angus Gunn, Milo Rashica. So we've got some significant progress now on the Norwich squad. Not done. I don't think anybody thinks it's done. The squad still needs plenty of work. Stuart Webber's going to be a busy man for a good while yet. But it's going to be really interesting to see where this lad fits into things, because he's in stature. He looks reasonably similar to Stiepermann, doesn't he? And he's sort of tall and gangly, and he obviously has got a lot of technique about him. So where do you think he's going to sort of fit into things? Because he looks like he's probably got the potential to be a number 10, but generally he's played that sort of the left of a 3, hasn't he, for Nice?
Yeah, the way I was speaking to someone yesterday who knows probably a lot more about him than I do, and he kind of compared him to Kenny McLean in a sense, although not particularly great sort of aerially. Doesn't seem like, for whatever reason, whether he doesn't like heading or he's just in a side that doesn't really compete aerially, but doesn't sound like he's particularly keen on heading the ball. But someone who goes through a lot of work, is pretty strong in what he does defensively and also offensively, without being probably tremendous in both. I think that's fair to say. And again, Tony's flashed up the graphic there. You can kind of see the positions he's played in. And when we talk about Norwich City and reducing the squad, and we talk about upping the quality, this is, I think, an example of that. You've got someone who can play in a range of midfield positions, probably all of them really, in terms of attacking midfield, central midfield and defensive midfield as well, and is capable of doing all those, so offers the versatility that maybe Norwich really only have with Lucas Rupp in midfield. So he probably strengthens that side of it. In terms of him fitting in, I do see him sort of slotting alongside Gilmore in that midfield too. Now, how that looks in terms of a wider picture and a wider shape, I'm not sure. Whether we'll see Norwich, as increasingly I feel we will, go towards a variation of a 4-1-4-1, 4-3-3, however you want to describe it, and look to maybe hit teams on the counter a little bit more. That's kind of the road I feel the signings are going down, towards that kind of style. And if you've got someone there who can support both what they're trying to do in attack and also their work defensively, then you're going to have someone who, as you said, right at the top end of the show, I'll use the word again, dependable in kind of both phases of the game. So that's kind of where I see him fitting in. Someone who can do a little bit of it all. He was vice captain at Nice, wasn't he? Captained them in half of their games and half of the games that he played in last season, rather. So they're clearly getting someone with good leadership skills, someone who has the quality to lead a group of players, and that's what you need, I think, when you're in a relegation dogfight. So all of these ticks that we're putting against his kind of his profile, if you like, and yeah, I think this one's a really intriguing one. And that midfield generally, I think I'm really intrigued to see how Daniel Farke sets it up, and hopefully pre-season, which of course starts on Friday, will be a good kind of indication of how Norwich are going to line up come Liverpool on August the 17th.
Yeah, Kingsland on Friday, of course. We assume that's probably going to be too soon for him, but maybe not. He's in Norfolk. He's got the deal done, hasn't he? So I don't know. With the way travel and stuff is at the moment, it may well mean that that's going to come too soon for him. We shall see. Let's look at the Daniel Farke quotes. Tony, probably a good time to bring up the graphic again, but just. I certainly won't do an impression, but here's what Daniel Farke said in the club's press release. We're delighted to have been able to sign a player like Pierre. There are a lot of things to like about him and his football qualities. He's a really good technical player and is very good with the ball. He also has the physical ability every game to cover lots of ground and can play many positions and roles. His CV, age and experience are very good. He has played for a big club in Nice in pressure situations with some talented players. He's played a lot of football in recent years, so he's in a good rhythm and full of confidence. We think Pierre will help us in the Premier League. He has great character and personality. It is not a coincidence and is always a good sign when a player is allowed to wear the captain's armband at such a big club like Nice. In our communication, we all got the feeling that he is desperate to move to Norwich. He's an intelligent and humble guy and is greedy to work and improve on this level. So he played for Patrick Vieira at Nice. I did wonder whether Vieira's arrival at Palace had maybe sped this along. Maybe it was a player that Norwich thought, right, we've got to get this one done if we want him. It wasn't massively successful for Vieira at Nice, but I'll come back to it in a minute. But there's some nice quotes from him. He described him as a match winner, for instance. He signed a new contract when Vieira was at the club. Yeah, I think this is one that's going to catch the attention of people. A few more of the comments coming through. Lee B on YouTube sounds promising. Hopefully another classic Weber signing. Russ on YouTube again says, never heard of him. Hope he makes it. What about Danjuma of Bournemouth? I don't think they're going to be able to afford Danjuma as much as they would like to. I'll put this one to you, Connor. This is an interesting one, given that I think we still would expect another midfield signing. Chuffy asks on Twitter, Phil Billing likely now? What do you reckon?
Well, I guess that's another interesting dimension, isn't it? I think, as you alluded to, I don't think they're anywhere near done. I don't think they're anywhere near done in midfield either. Clearly, there is a defensive midfield hole that has been opened up. We've all seen the pictures of Ollie Skipp back training with Tottenham. His recovery seems to have sped up significantly. Looks like he's set for a full return to training next week. From the noises coming from that end, it looks like he's set to be included in their sort of first team picture. So that would certainly open a space in defensive midfield, obviously with Alex Tettey leaving as well. Where Norwich see Phil Billing in that kind of thing, I'm not quite sure. He played primarily as kind of a number 10 for Bournemouth last season, but has played in sort of a deeper role for Huddersfield when he was there and for Bournemouth at times as well. So I wouldn't completely strike a line through it. It's going to be interesting to see whether this arrival does shift not necessarily Norwich's interest, but certainly the priority, whether they'll now prioritise other areas, and we'll see them, as kind of we've said throughout now, sort of target central defenders and midfielders and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of elements to kind of consider. So no, I wouldn't completely strike a line through Phil Billing, but I think it does probably change it to a degree.
Yeah, and he was always one that it was going to depend a bit on what Scott Parker thought. It's going to depend on how much money Bournemouth need to generate and how much he's sort of intent on staying there with them for another promotion push. So we shall see, but a long way to go in this transfer window yet. August the 30th, so we'll be 3 games into the Premier League season when it actually closes. Neil Luther on YouTube says, Norwich stepping up the quality of players brought in. Craig Brown still need to sign a striker. Yeah, I think sounds like they are having a look at that area, doesn't it? Another forward option. We've got this Hugill speculation with Forest in the background, so we shall see. There's plenty of evolution to go. Kevin Andrews, hi guys, what's the latest on the departures? Aarons and Cantwell in particular. Yes, I got Aarons right first time.
It's getting in there, isn't it?
Yeah, finally. I joked to Pad. I can't. I think it was Window Watch when we did it the other week that he's almost becoming double barreled, isn't he? He's becoming Aarons, but we're getting there. Max Aarons. What else have we got? There's nothing much moved on with that. As the link with Everton again with Max at the weekend, but he's been linked with Everton for a long time. And as I said in our Q&A yesterday, I don't really see him as a Benitez player. I think he'd be looking for someone more defensive. I could much more see him fitting in at Arsenal at the moment if Hector Bellerin was to move on to Inter Milan, as the rumours are at the moment. Colin Anderson on Facebook says, this looks like a Rupp upgrade. We needed, no, I like Rupp as a 10 in the 4-2-3-1, allowing Cantwell to do the flair and doing the dirty work. Okay, so he's saying really there that he sees Rupp more as a number 10 than a central midfielder in the Premier League. So we shall see. Neil Luther says skip a non-starter. Connor's just sort of covered that. Colin Woods, forget Billing, he's overrated. Yeah, I'm not sure everyone is convinced on that. Liam Winnall saying about the fee around 5 million. Michael Bailey has said it's under 4 million. Yeah, well, as we said, 5 million deal doesn't mean 5 million up front, does it? So we will never know exactly, but the reports in France were saying it was about 6 million euros package, so about 5 million in English money. Let's just have a quick look back at his career then, Connor. This, as I say, 2015, as recently as 2015, he was still playing in the 5th tier in France in non-league. Now, I'm going to have an attempt at this club's name. It's quite a long one. Union Sportive de Léger Cap Ferret. That's my best French impression you're getting.
See, I got a D in French GCSE, so I wasn't even going to attempt it. So I'm quite glad that you have, to be honest.
I got a C, and I have no idea how. But I digress. So yes, so he's from essentially Bordeaux is the main city in the region that he's from, which is Nouvelle Aquitaine, which is on the west coast of France, the Atlantic coast. So that's the sort of area that he grew up, and he was only early 20s when he came through for them as well, playing in the 5th tier. So he gets his move to Dijon in 2015. And that is at that point they're in League Two. He's initially playing for their B team. He comes into their team as they are pushing for promotion in 2015-16, gets into the team. They end up finishing second, scores a couple of important goals for them. And then all of a sudden he's playing in League One, Ligue 1, I should say. And they survive, and he gets this big move to Nice. And at the time, he's playing for Lucien Favre, who goes on to be the Borussia Dortmund manager. He's played with a lot of top-level players. I mean, you mentioned the captaincy, Connor. It was, I think Morgan Schneiderlin was basically their captain last season, wasn't he? So he's a player that Norwich fans will recognise the name of from his time at Manchester United and Southampton. Played alongside Alan Maximan, for instance, who's basically Newcastle's best player when he's fit. Mario Balotelli had a very good season. All these recognisable names feed into a story which is very interesting from a Norwich point of view, because you can get your teeth into it properly. You can go on YouTube. You can see what this guy can do. He is an established player. But I guess the point we come into this story, Connor, is that it's what next, isn't it? Why has he felt that Norwich is the best move for him at the moment? He assumedly is coming here because he thinks that Daniel Farke's style is going to suit him well, and that Norwich have got a good shot of staying up.
Yeah, I think there's a few elements to this really in terms of why Norwich and why now. One thing, I just touching back on the graphic that Tony showed there. One thing I do really like, you look at the appearance columns for the last 5 or 6 seasons, they're all really solid and consistent number of games that he's playing, which would indicate that Norwich again are getting someone who's very reliable, very dependable, doesn't pick up a lot of injuries particularly, and they're all at a very good level. Like you said, they're played with some excellent players. I mean, the midfield three played largely on a left side of a 4-3-3 in midfield that contained, as you mentioned, Morgan Schneiderlin and a name I'm sure Norwich fans will recognise, which is Claude Maurice. So some very good players, and maybe he hasn't been the standout player in that midfield, but he's certainly been an important part of it. So one thing that struck me in these quotes from Daniel Farke, there's an interesting bit about him being desperate to come to Norwich and that real desire to join the club, which is interesting. This is obviously his first move outside France, which is in itself a bit of a risk, a bit of an unknown. You don't know how players acclimatise to different situations, but all of those statistics would suggest that and certainly all the noises that have come out of Nice since this kind of broke, is that he's someone who's very kind of level-headed, someone who does like a lot of hard graft, does do the hard yards that perhaps other players don't want to do. And then, of course, the other question is why Norwich and why now? And France has been a market that Norwich have been looking at for probably over a year now, but certainly that stepped up in since the turn of the year for several reasons. Partly because of obviously the impact of coronavirus on finances, but there was also a collapsed TV deal, which means the finances of French football in general has really been suppressed. And there's probably a lot of talent there that you can pick out for not very much, which is why Norwich have obviously looked at that market for interest as a club who are sort of self-sufficient and who look for value in their transfers that they do. So you can probably get talent at sort of a lower price than perhaps you would have been able to 12 months ago from France. So I'm not particularly surprised to see someone with this pedigree arrive, but equally arrive for a fee that, as I've seen a few comments come through, relatively not underwhelming, but certainly not particularly great in terms of figures. In terms of him, I guess that it's the Premier League attraction, isn't it? It's massive for players abroad. It is the league they want to play in. Whenever a player comes from abroad to the Premier League, they always talk about it being the best league in the world, how they want to show themselves in that. And this is a real opportunity too, I think, for him, even though he's been playing alongside some good players, maybe the competition that he's going to experience in the Premier League will be greater. So this is, and I think Ligue 1 is probably an underrated league. I think people look at it and say, well, PSG dominate, which they didn't last season. And that's kind of it. It's kind of a one-team league. I actually think the quality, you have got PSG who are the standout, but below that, the quality is pretty good. So this isn't a player who's come in from, let's say, the German second division. So it does show a step up. And it's also a major thing for Norwich that he's been attracted to the club as well, from a club the size of Nice, where you mentioned some of the players he's been playing alongside. So all of those elements are really interesting. It's just going to be about now where he fits in tactically and how Norwich approach it. And I think this is quite exciting personally. I think it could be one that slips under the radar because of kind of what we mentioned, the fee and sort of other signings that Norwich have made. Milo Rashica probably being the highlight so far. But if this guy gives you consistency at Premier League level, that could be a real asset for Norwich City next season.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much answered Paul Tubby's question, which is why is he so cheap? I mean, I don't think he's cheap, but yeah, I suppose in Premier League terms, he's cheap, isn't he? But also Christophe Gaultier coming across from Lille, he just won the title with Lille, didn't he? And but they had a change of ownership, which he didn't seem happy with, and so he's then swapped. But you know, Nice is still a big club, and all right, maybe not one of the biggest clubs, but they've got a 36,000 stadium, which is the stadium where England lost to Iceland at Euro 2016. It was one of the tournament stadiums, wasn't it? So, you know, it is a big move. But apparently, yeah, he doesn't tend to play a three-man midfield. So perhaps Lees-Melou doesn't really fit into his plans that are being built for this season, and that they've got a bit of a fresh wave coming through because they finished 9th last year, which, you know, again, out of European contention. So just a few last comments. Jonathan Parker, if Skip isn't returning, we need at least one top central defensive midfielder. Yes, I think we'd all agree with that. We sort of teed it up earlier. It's not just Skip, but Tete went as well, didn't he? And okay, maybe you've got Jacob Sorensen, who we're hoping could be a defensive midfielder, but we didn't really see him as a midfielder in the Championship last year. So it's difficult for us to be sort of counting on that necessarily happening this year. And I think this is a good sort of summary as a final comment. Will Thompson, I see Lees-Melou as a Vrancic replacement. Very good technique, but has the physicality to be able to play in the Prem. Right, and just I'll finish with the quotes from the man himself, Lees-Melou, from the club's press release, which were, "I'm very excited to join Norwich City and discover my new future with the club and its fans. I can't wait to play football in Norwich colours. I spoke with Daniel and Stuart. We had a very long conversation about football and the vision for the team. I've heard a lot about how Norwich plays football in the right manner and style, and also the club's spirit and mentality. I love that, and that got me very excited. I also spoke with Mordred Schneiderlin and Johan Barbe about football in England. They spoke very highly of Norwich and the club's position and standing. I appreciate the opportunity in this club and wanted to get the move sorted and start quickly. I'm excited to discover a new country, language, and play in the best league in the world." And the build-up to that big game against Liverpool on August 14th is starting to crank up a bit, isn't it? As Connor said earlier, the Kings Lynn game on Friday, 7 o'clock kickoff at the Walks, about a 1,500 limit on the capacity there that night. Of course, we'll bring you full coverage of that, live blog and all. We'll bring you all the interviews and as much as we can. Connor, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. We'll have plenty more. The full story, of course, is at PinkUn.com. The papers tomorrow as well. We've got the full profile that'll be going up shortly. So keep it locked on PinkUn.com. And thanks for watching.